So my talk today is something I'm calling the Medina operating system. But before we get to that, let's discuss what it means to be an Ummah. Most people will think an Ummah is the Muslim community, but if you look at the root word of the Ummah, it's the people that come together for a common purpose. They're aligned around principles. Ummah Tech is a perfect name because we're coming together not to just meet, we're coming together for a purpose, to build better tech, to build a better society. And if you look at our history, sometimes we forget how amazing the Seerah is. It was literally, the Seerah itself was a miracle. It was Islam, some of my teachers say, Islam was the only religion that gave birth to a new civilization, because the Arabs did not have a civilization. The Greeks, the Romans, they had civilizations, and Christianity was born into that. Whereas Islam came into a people that did not have a civilization, and then the civilization grew out of that. So that was part of the miracle. From Cordoba to Istanbul, Islamic civilization flourished. And we built systems of knowledge that influenced the world up to today. We would not know about Greek philosophy if the Muslims had not translated the Greek. So we had a very open approach to knowledge. I recently got back from Malaysia and I attended a professor there, Dr. Suhail Hanif, who presented a model of what he calls the Medina blueprint. I thought it was a very, very, very powerful idea because it completely shifted my framing. So basically, his proposal is the books of fiqh, how they classify it. It's not only a personal code of fiqh, it's also a map of how you build a flourishing civilization and a community. At the bottom there, you've got the 5 foundations. On the left-hand side, you've got trade law. In the middle, you've got the Qadi. On the right-hand side, you've got family law. At the top, you've got Kitabul Jihad, which is the protective layer of the Ummah. So he calls this structured Ummah. And what the Prophet ﷺ built in Medina for 10 years was this. And that was his miracle itself. And in Medina, there was a proliferation of roles. People were allocated to various different things. There was the person who would go and count this livestock to calculate zakah. There was the muazzin. So there was roles that were distributed. And his idea is this pattern that was created in Medina was just replicated across civilization in the Muslim Ummah. It was the same pattern applied in different situations, different contexts, and then just scaled up. But since we are a tech conference, I thought, okay, maybe we need to think of it as an operating system. At the bottom, you've got Tawheed, which is the kernel. It governs everything. It drives everything above it. And if you understand operating system layered architecture, this is that. You've got kernel services, which is the foundation, right? Tahara is like your authentication and state change, which gives you access to Salah, which is sync and connection process. It's a protected space. Your fasting is like load management. Hajj is global sync and update. You move one layer above that, and you've got your trade, which is your exchange protocols, fair exchange. Family is group policies, and you've got a Qadi who's arbitrating between people. But what's interesting about reframing it as an operating system is you now have an application layer. And you see I've put a logo there of Ummah Tech. Ummah Tech sits in the application layer of this Medina operating system. And then we've got the protective layer at the top, which is protecting the whole community. And on the left-hand side, you've got your system policies. On an operating system, you have a system policy which governs everything, all the systems and all the services. And that is the maqasid of the Sharia, which, what are the higher objectives of Sharia? What does fiqh protect? It protects life, intellect, posterity, wealth, and dignity. On the right-hand side, you have community and networking, which is linking to other Medinas around the world.
The topic is before you, reclaiming the Muslim mind in the age of algorithms. That's where I want to start. Where's the new battlefield? It's the battlefield for hearts and minds, which is a digital battlefield. And it is fought through feeds, not through swords, or not even through guns and bombs. The most powerful entity on earth today is what? Not a political one, not an economic one, not even a military one. It's the one that can tell stories that people believe. Politically, militarily, you can capture lands, you can capture property. But we live in an era where there has been a significant escalation in the quest to capture the hearts and minds of people. Our focus is, and rightfully so, on what's happening in Palestine and Sudan and other places in the world. But think for a moment, as devastating as it is there, the victims of the battle for the hearts and minds of people, at best, they suffer a diminished sense of Muslim identity. At worst, it could lead to intellectual apostasy, where you are Muslim on the outer, but internally you have been totally hollowed out. You no longer have those core values and you no longer identify with the fundamentals of Islam. So the battle for the hearts and minds of people is a greater challenge for the Ummah than those battles where the Ummah is being targeted due to land or due to property or for economic or political or economic reasons. You see, in the end, whoever controls the narrative controls perception. Whoever controls the narrative controls perception. And whoever controls perception controls the moral direction of humanity. Whose definition of justice? Whose definition of democracy? Whose definition of what is right is the world currently following? And where is that battle being fought? In the digital space. So our beliefs are shaped by those who control the code. There's a few quick stats in passing. 6 corporations control 90% of the media in the US. And by what happens in the US, there's a global extension. Algorithms amplify falsehood at a rate 64% faster than it amplifies truth. 54% of people today consume news after it has been filtered by algorithms. They're not just reporting, they're engineering. Those who control the narrative are not just reporting, they are engineering. So we move on to the Medina blueprint, right? When Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam came to Madinatul Munawwara, he built a masjid for spiritual fortification. He built a marketplace for economic independence. Today we need technological independence more than any other independence. Because 2 billion of us are dependent on somebody else's platform. We need a digital Medina with ethical systems of media and communication. Because what's happening with the algorithms? The algorithms decide what we see and what we don't see. Algorithms are not neutral. It's a coded worldview. And it's somebody else's worldview. See what is happening with regards to Palestine. Shadow banning. Now after the so-called ceasefire, tech scrubbing. Removing all content that is reflective of the genocide that Israel has perpetrated. So what's happening in the digital space is the perpetrators of genocide are rewriting history in real time. And there's nothing we can do about it. Because we are dependent in the digital space, we are not independent.
The part of our breakfast conversation was this exact question. What are we as an ummah desperately in need of right now, especially considering our current challenges, namely the genocide and the media propaganda? And the two things that stood out beyond everything else was, number one, platforms where truth won't be censored. And number two, platforms where we as an ummah can control our own finance and not bend to the rules of the financial institutions that currently exist. Despite the concern that we have as an ummah and the willingness to build and spend, we are still told by the empire where we can spend and where we can't spend, who we can spend on and who we can't spend on, who is a good guy and who's a bad guy. That's a huge problem in our ummah, because not only do they destroy us, as in the case with Gaza and Syria, but they also destroy the mechanisms that we need in order to rebuild after they've destroyed.
Wadda Khanfar, in his newly released book, Al-Rabi'ul Awwal, the first spring, which focuses primarily on the strategic element of Sunnah, says that we all look at Medina without understanding the pre-Medina context. If there was no Hijrah, there would be no Medina, right? And if there was no meticulous planning and vision, there would be no Hijrah. Why is it that Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was able to hit the floor running, so to speak, when he came to Medina? That in that short space of time, he achieved what he achieved. The Meccan era was a totally different era of restriction and limitation. It is because whilst Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was in that period of restriction, limitation, difficulty, challenge, personal difficulty, collective difficulty, he had a vision around which he was already meticulously planning. Medina didn't happen in a vacuum. Hijrah didn't happen by accident. Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam had a vision, he was meticulously planning, and when the opportunity arose and when the divine command was given, he could then execute that vision, and within that period of not even 10 years, because the first 8 of the 10 years of Medina was a different set of difficulty and challenges with the Munafiqun sector. In a period of 2 to 3 years after the liberation of Makkah, that is when you saw the progress and the growth. But that progress and growth in the last 3 years of the 23 years of Nubuwwah would not have happened if there wasn't vision and meticulous planning. And I think that is where our institutional deficit lies. We've got the physical infrastructure, we've got the talent, we've got the intention, people mean well. But that mindset shift hasn't taken place, which will ensure that we have the right vision followed by meticulous planning. The execution then is the easy part. I'll give you a personal example. Some of you may be aware of this. A couple of weeks ago, I was in Sri Lanka to attend a Muslim school conference. And just as the conference is starting, I'm on WhatsApp chatting with my wife, and a notification pops up on the screen. You have violated the terms and conditions. This number is banned and no longer able to be used on WhatsApp. I'm using this number for as long as WhatsApp is in existence. It's linked to my number that I've had for 25 years. Everyone only has that number. So somebody said to me, just move on, go to Signal or go to Telegram or do something else. I said, you see, my personal issue and challenge is one thing, but it's reflective of a deeper symptom. We are 2 billion Muslims, but we don't have our own platform for communication. So I can move on to any other platform, but the people I'm communicating with, if they are not on that platform, it doesn't serve my purpose. The app on my phone is designed by someone else. The technology of the phone is designed by somebody else. The network for the phone is designed by somebody else. And we need a digital Medina with ethical systems of media and communication. If you want to defend the truth, you must first learn to design for the truth. Because how do you defend the truth via somebody else's platform when that platform has been designed to distort the truth? The bottom line is this: we can't be fighting narratives all the time. We need to be forging narratives. We need to be leading the narratives.
So Dr. Suhail talks about the core domains of Medina. He says, he's abstracted that, and he says the core domains are spaces, creating spaces for gathering, worship and learning. Structured welfare and taxation, like zakah, but in other contexts. A marketplace on the left-hand side and family life on the right-hand side. And in the middle, you've got arbitration and justice, making sure the system is completely cohesive. And at the top, you've got a governance layer. So I thought, could we maybe take the same thing and apply it to Ummah Tech? And yes, we can. It's the exact same framework. We're sitting within the framework of Medina OS. If you do some programming, that's called a recursion. And at the bottom there, we've got Ummah Tech principles. We've got a commitment from the community. This is a space where we gather to learn and connect with each other. We need to build some structured welfare systems. How do we distribute resources from people who have, who don't have? I mean, we had students calling us saying this 1,500 Rand was too expensive. So how do we get those people to form part of our community? And then we've got to put some constraints, which is like your fasting, which is load management and throttling. And then global sync and updates, Shura. right? Maybe we build a community marketplace, and we have some group policies of how we negotiate with each other, and we have some way to resolve disputes between members. And then the layer above that, applications, it's what you build, right? And then we've got to have a governance layer, which is cohesion and communication, and system policies, which is the objectives we set out to do as a community. So this framework, let's call it the Medina OS, can be applied to all our communities and to all our organizations. That's my proposal to you.
There's no quick fix here. There's no band-aid. I close on this. The only solution for the Ummah to prosper is that in every science and every field, we need men and women who will pursue dunya for the sake of akhirah, who will excel with ihsan. And when we start leading in every science and every field, especially in the tech science and field, then we will become independent of others and they will become dependent on us. But when Muslims lead, we don't lead with selfish values. We lead with the values of Islam. So our careers will prosper. Our communities will prosper. The Ummah will prosper. But humanity will also prosper. And then we live up to that Quranic definition. Kuntum khayra ummatin ukhrijat linnas.
We all need to become Medina builders. We need to develop the capabilities to build within us all. The visionary, the leader, the architect, the teacher, the connector, the creator, and finally, the storyteller.